Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation podcast network.
I have had chronic migraine for 25 years. I've had migraine for 30. So it has been a long road to get to where I am now.
Hello and welcome to Talking Head Pain, the podcast that confronts head pain head on.
Hi, I'm Joe Ko, Director of Education Digital Strategy at the Global Healthy Living Foundation and a migraine patient for over 20 years.
I'm here with a really special guest, Marnie Russ. She's a chronic migraine and long COVID patient, and more interestingly, the National Kitten College Program administrator. I had the privilege of hearing Marnie speak at a headache and migraine policy forum briefing on Capitol Hill about long COVID and headache. So it's really, really a pleasure to have you on the show today, Marnie, and I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to talk about myself for a little while.
Let's jump in. What is the National Kitten College Program, and what do you do there?
I work at the Animal Welfare League of Arlington in Arlington, Virginia, not far from the Pentagon. We are a high-functioning animal shelter that about 5 years ago started a program. I work with kittens and have historically done a lot of neonatal kitten care. And I knew that our community did really well with handling the kittens in our community, but outside of our borders, kittens were being euthanized every night at 9:30. And shelters have to do that. It sounds harsh, but if you get a kitten in that needs, constant attention overnight and you don't have the resources, the kindest thing to do is to euthanize them. But in my mind, the next kindest thing was to create a program where they had a safe place to go if they fell into that category. So we absolutely started off bare bones. We went from saving 92 kittens a year here in Arlington. Last year, I think we did over 1,550. So we definitely were addressing a need, and that program exploded so quickly and so with such force that we decided it might be something that other shelters could try and see if it works in their facilities. A lot of people don't know, but shelters are often given funding based on their live release rates. So if your live release rate is high, you are usually prioritized to get either competitive grants or county funding, or however you get your mainstream of fiscal security for the year. People also don't know that neonatal kittens are the most euthanized animals in shelters. So if a shelter was looking to increase their live release rate, they really have to pay attention to what they do with the neonatal kittens that come in. So it came at a good time. People obviously don't want to euthanize kittens. So having a program was really helpful to the community and to the trappers and to everybody who helps kittens. And it's spiraled. So we started there. Now we go all over the country and teach shelters, how to save them, how to triage them, how to create a program on a shoestring budget.
When you said you were by the Pentagon, I had this vision of like Department of Defense kittens.
Yeah. Well, don't think we haven't named them after famous generals or yeah, we have to come up with a lot of creative names for kittens after over 1,500.
That's amazing. So it seems like advocacy has been in your heart and soul.
Yes, absolutely. Prior to this, I was a lobbyist. I started out lobbying for international aerospace at a very young age, and that was amazing because I got to go all over the world. And coming from Montana, where I'm originally from, it was a wonderful opportunity. But I really wanted to get back to Montana, so I created my own little firm, I guess in 2004, so quite a while ago, 19 years ago, where I just focused on Montana nonprofits and getting money back to nonprofits in Montana. And that was amazing. And then as the government slowly screeched to a halt and weren't passing a lot of bills, didn't make sense for me to continue to work for people that don't have any return on their investment. So I switched to kittens.
Then I met you through the Headache and Migraine Policy Forum talking about chronic migraine and long COVID headache. What brought you to speak there?
One of my very best friends is the ED of that program. And, she and I in our 20s lived together, and she knew that I had migraine because she would see me down for a day or two at a time and how sick I would get. So she knew I had it. She didn't realize that I had gotten COVID. I got it in December. So I was a holdout. I honestly felt like I was invincible, but I got it in December and it changed my headaches. So we were just talking about it through our friendship and how we do. And she was like, would you be interested in doing this? We need somebody to do this and you're a perfect fit. And I always would support her when she was doing her headache on the hill and stuff. I would take folks to the Montana offices and help with that. But I never really thought about getting involved at the level that I was last week. And I really got a lot out of it. Like I thank her for that opportunity because I learned quite a bit. And I learned that in a lot of ways, I'm different from migraine sufferers. In a lot of ways, I'm similar, in which I didn't realize. And I'd never been in a room where I would be talking about the changes I had to make in my life and all the nodding heads. That was really a first for me, and it felt really good.
Who is your friend? Let the people know.
Oh, Lindsay Vidnieks. Yes.
We love her.
Everybody loves Lindsay because she's fantastic. Yes.
So part of your story, as I was listening and taking notes, and I shared some of those notes with you, I was really touched that your relationship changed when you developed chronic migraine. Can you share with our audience how your romantic relationships changed when you became chronically ill?
Yeah. So actually, normally I don't tell people initially that I have chronic migraine, and it's not I don't feel sorry for myself, but I just don't want to be judged as high maintenance. I don't want people to think I can't do things, because I've really developed tools to make anything almost possible. It's just that I have to do it in maybe a different way than other people. Several years ago, I got engaged to somebody who, was not familiar with it. And I would be fine, and people would not know. And he was no different. I didn't mention it, but he, I had 2 weeks of stress that really knocked me down. And he at one point just said, I didn't sign up for chronic migraine, which, nobody signs up for it. I didn't sign up for it. So, it was a tough lesson to learn. But in the end, if there's not compassion at that point, there's not going to be compassion at other points. And so it turned out to be something that helped me realize what I deserve and what I want and what I need, because even if I wanted to, and I've wanted to my whole life, get rid of my chronic migraine, I can't, and I can make it work. And I can go through long periods where it's just day-to-day management, but emotional stress is a big trigger for me. I'm 49 years old, but I have to be completely alone or with my mother. Those are my two choices of care when I get to a point that I can't autocorrect myself. And, true. I mean, there are probably people that would love me conditionally and say, this is too much, because I'm not available during that time. And if I've previously been available, it can be a tough pill to swallow.
Definitely think a lot of people can relate to that. For a time in my life, I thought I might run for office, and I felt like if I was so public about having chronic migraine or even high episodic migraine, that people would be like, can he do that? Is he going to be present?
Yeah. I mean, I would say, now that I'm talking about it, more people know, and I'm posting on my social media just to get awareness. But even my closest friends know, my friends who have seen it, because I have other things, like I have a super sensitivity to motion sickness. And I don't know if that's tied. In my opinion, I feel like it must be, because it's been my whole life, even when I was a baby. I'm just super sensitive to it. So I always have to drive. And, a lot of people like that I always drive. And some people are like, can somebody else drive? I feel like getting the word out there is kind of doing the opposite. Like, people understand me more. Mostly I've proven myself, but it's taken me a long time to get to that point. I never would have told people, especially if I'm just starting a job. Maybe that is information they need to know. My work performance would never suggest that I'm not anything but fully there. So I usually tell people after I've had the ability to prove myself.
And that ties into a phrase that you used that I really liked and resonated with me. You talked about the concept of not having the luxury to fail.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to you as a professional, as someone who is developing this career in lobbying and now in the nonprofit sector saving kittens? What does the luxury not to fail mean?
Well, it basically means that I have to put something together that fits my lifestyle. And I have not really been employed by anybody other than myself or somebody who gives me almost complete anonymity, since I was working at Cassidy and Associates with Lindsay at our lobbying firm. And we left there in 2002, I think. So it's been a long time. I can't do a 9 to 6. When I wake up, I'll wake up probably 3 times a week with a migraine. And most migraine sufferers know that if you wake up with a migraine, it's usually too far gone. It's so much harder to address. So I will get in enough sleep, because sleep is also a trigger. And then if I wake up for it, I have to take an hour to get it under control so I can manage, so I can drive, so I can function. So that for me is I have to create these jobs that fit me and my migraine. And then I have to do them so well that they become so important that I can't, that they won't go away. Because I'm a very independent, self-supporting woman that I like nice things. So I want to be able to support myself at a certain level. And in order to do that, I have to be, a necessity for the people I work with and for.
Then you developed COVID in December of last year. How did that change your health?
It was really interesting because, like I said, I hadn't had COVID, and I honestly thought that I was completely immune to it because I'd been around so many people, and then whatever that strain was got me, and I was down for 2 weeks, and I wasn't totally sick, like to go to the hospital, but I was sicker than I usually am. And usually any type of illness will give me a migraine. And I didn't get a migraine with this. I had a low grade headache in one part, the back part of my head. And, it wasn't enough. I would take a migraine pill and that might help a little, but then I would take ibuprofen and it would go away. And I was thinking, that's so strange, because in the past, people have said to me that if you have a migraine, you need to take your migraine pill and treat every headache as if it is a migraine, because you don't get regular headaches. Your body only gets migraines. And of course, early on, I would hoard my medicine because I'd be like, I'll just take ibuprofen, see if I can get rid of it. And then if I get rid of it, I save one of the pills that I would have taken. So that had been my mantra until I reached out to this one neurologist at one point that I had that said, you need to take a migraine pill immediately because you are always getting migraines. So that was great advice. But then long COVID totally changed that protocol in my life, because the migraine pills weren't really doing anything and ibuprofen would just get rid of it. It's hard to go around with a low grade headache all the time because I'm used to going around with, a migraine, but then I get rid of it. That for me was an interesting way to be like, how many I would have to take acetaminophen 3 to 4 times a day to manage this low grade migraine. And even if I hadn't taken it, it would have been a low grade migraine. I could have done stuff. I do lose my words a lot more. And for being a public speaker, that's not ideal. So yeah, and my number of migraines has gone down significantly, which would seem wonderful. But my migraine and I have a relationship. We're copacetic. We know how each other works. And I don't understand what this one means. So I'm learning as I go.
Sounds that way. And we're all learning about the impact of long COVID and headache. For me, it was interesting. A lot of people that I know that got the vaccine would develop a headache and I didn't. Mm-hmm. And I was shocked because like you, I was like, I'm gonna get a headache or a migraine from this. And I didn't, which was interesting.
With the vaccines, I always got a migraine. Which was fine because I would just take my pill right after I got it before the migraine came on. After the first one, I learned that one. But yeah, it's so funny that we all can have the same thing and our triggers are so different. Our responses are so different. What works for one doesn't work for the other. It's morphs so differently in people. And that's sort of one of the things I was taking to heart when we're having those conversations leading up to the seminar last week and then during the panel.
During the briefing that you participated in, you talked about the difference in how your headache is now versus it was before COVID and some of the fear that you have and uncertainty. Can you explain to the audience what that fear and uncertainty is?
Yeah, the biggest thing about it is just not knowing. I did not anticipate that I would have a change in my headaches at this point in my life at 49. I have had chronic migraine for 25 years. I've had migraine for 30. So it has been a long road to get to where I am now. And so I understand it. Like I know that if I am super stressed at work for something I can't handle, I'm going to get a migraine. I don't understand this because it's usually always there. And it's changing what my migraine looks like to me. And I don't know what it's going to be like, if this long COVID for me is just a temporary stretch, then when my migraine comes back, am I going to have to relearn my life? It's that much of a partner in your life. Like I cannot, if my migraine says I can't do something, I can't do something. And I've been so lucky to have amazing people in my life. I thought about that during our conversation. And ironically, one thing that I didn't realize until last week was that the tendency for people who suffer from this to also have depression and anxiety. And of course that makes sense. Of course it does. I'd never thought of it. It's not my experience. It maybe should have been. I've been so fortunate. My mom, if I have, she just knows. I'll be like, she doesn't hear from me like at a certain time or something. She's like, do you have a migraine? And, I have some friends that are like that get it. And, if in my future, those are the people I have to surround myself with. And it can't be, you cancel our plans and, this, I never want to cancel plans. I'm a super social person. And, I got a lot of sympathy for the folks that struggled. Your migraines are bad enough, but then to have anxiety and depression on top of that, it's crippling. And I am very lucky that I haven't had that. And I don't know, what if this change in headache brings across things like that I have to change my life for again.
Sounds like you will confront it head on like this podcast. I wanted to let the audience also know that one of your panelists, Dr. Robbins, was on a previous episode of Talking Head Pain, talking about some of the research and data around headache and COVID and some of the connectedness. So folks go back and look. There's a quick interview with Dr. Robbins. It's about 5 or 10 minutes. We were at one of the American Headache Society meetings. So I was glad that he was on the panel with you because he's a super bright guy who shared some really, really good information. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you would want to cover today?
One thing that I got feedback on after that panel was just how people found it interesting. And I didn't find it super interesting because it's been my life, but my migraine has made it so that I handle and react to things differently than most people. And it is mostly because I know what's a trigger, and since emotional instability is for me a trigger for migraine, I have to look at something that other people might get upset about. And if I can't fix it, I can't put my thoughts and energy into it because it's a risk. So I used at the panel, I used the idea of an election. Like often elections don't go your way and people get really upset, and understandably so. It can be scary, but I can't do anything about it. And I have to move on. I have to do everything I can up to that and feel good about what I did. But when bad things happen, I think I move on faster than others, and it may come across as maybe calluses or uncaring. But for me, it's a coping mechanism. And it is something that I've honed to the point where I see something, I have to either realize in that instant, is this something that is worth the stress or not? Can I impact it? Because obviously everything is worth the stress if you're passionate about it, but can I or can I not impact it? And that probably is accredited to my job. I have the neonatal kittens have a 40% mortality rate. So we lose a lot of them, but they're better off for having us available to them. And their stories were written, and we can save some. We can't save them all, but we can try. So I think because I'm able to compartmentalize these things, I'm able to have a job like I do. And that is something that I guess migraine did for me.
How long did it take you to get to that point of being able to say, this is going to make me not well? I can't process it this way?
I think it was over time. I think I probably started doing it in my 30s, but my 30s are when my migraines really started to ramp up. So as they got worse and I auto-corrected, it was something I did without knowing. I didn't realize I was doing it. I would have people say, like my twin brother, he was fostering a kitten. Kitten passed away. I came to help him and to take care of the kitten and everything. And he's almost in tears in the bathroom. And I'm just, taking the kitten and, doing what I need to do. And he just looked at me and goes, "You have a cold, dead heart." Which, we're twins. We have the complete same upbringing. You would think would handle things very similarly, but, I can't be upset when they die or else I couldn't do my job. And, it was something that he did that one time and will never do again, probably because of what happened. But for him, he was, he just didn't understand how I wasn't crying. I wasn't, of course I didn't want it to happen, but that kitten was gone. There was nothing I could do. So probably in my 30s, about 10 years after I started getting my migraines, did I really have to realize how my reactions impacted my health.
I'm sure there's a whole other podcast about twins and the one with the cold heart and the one with the warm heart and what you did to him growing up to make him think that you have a cold heart.
Yeah, I know.
We want the twin side.
Yes. Well, you don't trust me. He would probably be mad that I told him that he got so upset. But
Aw.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for the work that you do with
Thank you.
kittens. I am a big cat person, and Jasper stayed sleeping upstairs. He normally comes on to say hi, but I think he
Oh, I know.
knew that you were
I was
good.
promised a Jasper. You saw Skeeter came. He's
I
sleeping.
did.
He
Yeah, Jasper's chilling upstairs. I heard some noise up there, so him and his sister are probably fighting, but he's up there, and that's really important work. And then your advocacy that you're doing with migraine, headache, and COVID, super important. So thank you for your energy.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Talking Head Pain, the podcast that confronts head pain head on. If you like this episode, please give it an honest 5-star rating and subscribe so you never miss another one. I'm Joe Coe, and I will see you next time.
Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation podcast network.